Okay, so yesterday we looked at a problem like this. Two of you got it correct. I think. Yes. Because you both labeled too. But two of you did have the correct label and numerical heading. I got it on freeze, so that's nice. All right, as we look at it, find the perimeter. What does perimeter mean again? Area around the figure. All angles are right angles. Dimensions are in kilometers. So if I look at these three segments that I am going to highlight right now, what is the sum of those three segments? 12. It's going to be the same as the sum of this, or the base right here. So I have 12 on the top and 12 on the bottom, which is how much? 24. So I've doubled the 12. The next thing I have are these two segments on the left-hand side and the right-hand side. What's the sum of those two segments in blue? 10. But I am not done because my whole figure has not been outlined yet. So I have these two little pieces right here. So this is also going to be 2, which is going to give you a total of 4. If you add those together, you end up with 38. Units are kilometers. 38 kilometers. Now that was the simple one that we worked through, because the more complex one we didn't get to an actual example of, but it had to deal with a circle. What's the formula for circumference of a circle? 2 pi r or diameter times pi. So we either had 2 pi r or pi times diameter. If I give you this figure then, and I ask you to find the perimeter of this figure, dimensions are in inches. I'm going to pass out the markers. You can work with a partner. I will give you 2 minutes. Okay, as we look at this, just a little bit different from yesterday because we now have a curved segment involved. One thing you got to keep in mind is it's the distance around the figure, correct? Yes. You do not include this dashed line right there. That is not around the outside of the figure. That's on the inside of your figure. As you calculate the perimeter of this object then, you can write your answer in terms of pi, which means it will be something like, I don't know, say 26 plus 3 pi. You don't have to take 3.14 times 3 and say it's 9.42. You don't have to do that and then add that to 26 to give you 35.42, but you could. And I'm going to show you how to do it so we can leave it in terms of pi, and then I'll actually calculate it because some of you just really got to know what that number is. So as we go about finding it, the two segments that I am highlighting right now in green, what is the length of each one of those? 10. So their sum is 20. So right now I have 20 that I want to put in my perimeter. Now I have another segment, that's this vertical segment right here. That vertical segment, is it a length of 10? No. Some of you said it was 10. But it's not 10. If I were to take this point right here and move it over here, what's the distance there? 3. And what's the distance here? 3, which gives you a total of 6. The full length is 6, which is the same thing as the diameter of the circle. So the diameter of the circle is going to be 6. Please do not add 6 from right here, because that's not on the outside of your figure. So we cannot add another 6. We only have 6 occurring once. So I'm going to add 6. And the piece that we have left is this curved piece right here. What do we call the distance around a circle? Circumference. And what is that formula for circumference? 2 pi r. But how much of it do you have? How much of this circle do I have? Half. I did not say I have this piece over there to give me a whole circle, did I? You only have half of that circumference of the circle. So the formula 2 pi r is correct, but since we only have half of it, I divide by 2. When you take 2 pi r and you divide by 2, what happens to these 2's? They cancel each other out. So circumference of a semicircle is the same thing as pi times radius. What is the radius? 3. So that is the same thing as pi times 3, or 3 pi. So we want to add that to our piece down here when I'm finding perimeter. Now, as I mentioned before, if you want to use the approximation for pi is 3.14 and take that times 3 and come up with 9.42, you could. But I'm going to show you how you can start writing your answer in what they say is exact format, because you leave it in terms of pi. Then you can come up with an approximation. What you do is you're going to group together line segment lengths and group together curves. So these two pieces, 20 and 6, are my line segments. What happens when I add those together? 26. And then I'm going to group together any curved segments I have, which is just 3 pi. Now we cannot add those together in that format. That is not 29 pi. You have to keep the straight and the curved segments separate. Units would be what? Inches. Now if I use that, we already talked about what 3 pi is. What is the value of 3 pi? 9.42. And if I add those together, you end up with 35.42 inches. Now here is why the best way I can do is just provide you with an example. If I take this right here, don't do this. We do not do this. If I were to add those together and say that it's 29 pi, I can't do that. And I'll tell you why. Because 29 times, what's an approximation for pi? 3.14. It's also like 3. Let me just say I'm going to take it times 3. You're going to get a value greater than 87. Is that what the answer is? No. You cannot group line segment lengths together with curved segments if you have it in terms of pi. Do not add the numerical part with your line segment sum. You have to keep them separate. So this is a big no, not your answer. Do not answer that as 29 pi. You're going to get it wrong. Did you have a question on that thing? I bet some of you included the vertical piece. If you included the vertical piece, you would have 41 as an answer. If you let it be 10 instead of 6, you would have had 50. 49 as an answer. You would have had 49.42 as an answer. Another one. Here you go. I want you to find the perimeter of this figure. I'll give you 2 minutes. Go. Okay. If I talk about the line segments, if I talk about the line segments, I have 14. Am I going to double 14? No, because I do not want this piece right there. I do not want that length of 8. So all I have is I have the 14. So we're going to take 14. I'm going to add to it another segment, which is this 10. So I'm going to add 10. And then I'm going to add another part, which is 6. Then we have this curved segment right here. If you talk about that curved segment, what is it? 5 pi. You would take it times 2. It's going to be 10 pi, but I have to divide by 2 because it's only a semicircle. So then I have a 5 pi, but I have yet another segment, right? The other segment I have is this curved piece right here, which is a semicircle. What is that circumference part? 4 pi. So I'm going to add this 4 pi over here. Is my figure completely colored as I go around? Have I included all the parts of the perimeter? Yes. Once again, do the dashed segments count? No, they're inside the figure. So now I talked about how you can leave it in terms of pi. What do you group together when they're in terms of pi? We group the line segments together. What are the line segments? The 14, 10, and 6. Those are the line segments, the straight parts. What's that going to give you? 30. And then what do I do about the curved segments? You group those together, so I can add these together, which gives you how much? 9 pi. So you can leave your answer in this format. Dimensions are in feet. This is a way you can leave your answer, which is the form Garrett left it in. Now, some of you took 3.14 times 5, then you took 3.14 times 4, and then you added those together and you got them in terms of like one number, so many feet, and it was a decimal answer. You can do that, but you can group those curved segments together, and then all you have is one multiplication part where you take 3.14 times 9, and you get 28.26. If you add that to 30, what are you going to get? 58.26 feet. And there's your answer. Which two of you had that? Good job. I know 2 of you had that as an answer. I didn't know because I didn't do the actual calculation in my head. So when you were asking that, I'm like, I knew it was close because I was approximating 27 on it, saying it's around 57. But I didn't know for sure if it was exactly what you had down as that decimal number. Ready for another question? Next question. I don't have a figure now. The length of a rectangle is 10 centimeters and the width of the rectangle is 5. Find the perimeter of the rectangle. What do we want to do? Draw a picture. So I'm going to draw a picture, and some of you are going to go, what's the length? What's the width? Does it matter? Usually the length's going to be the longer segment, but it doesn't matter. The length of the rectangle is 10 centimeters and the width is 5. They want to know what is the perimeter of that figure. Answer, do we have it quickly? 30. We have this segment of 10 on the bottom, 10 on the top, so there's your 20. And then you have the 2 vertical segments, which are both 5. You add another 10, and you end up with 30. What do I got to do to that, or I'm going to miss it? Label it. 30 centimeters. Now, sometimes you might have to write the word units, okay? But if they specifically give you a unit measurement length, use that. What about this one? Now you got to think about it. The perimeter of the square is 12 meters. What is the length of one side of the square? A minute with a partner. Go. So as you look at your square, I know the perimeter is equal to 12. How many sides create the perimeter? 4. Are they the same length? Yes. So I have 4 of these that are all the same length. So I'm going to take 12 and divide by 4, and we find out the length of one side is 3 meters. 3 meters. Next problem. 30 seconds with a partner. What is the formula for circumference of a circle? Be careful because you were just doing semicircles, but now I want the circumference of a full circle. And what is the formula for circumference of a circle? 2 pi r. 2 times pi times the radius. Now, I've noticed a few things going on that I want to make it easier for you. You're going into too much calculation work. Don't go to that much trouble. I'm not saying you're not going to get the same answer. And this is one where I say, I believe it's easier. If you want to do it your way, that's fine. But I think once you see it this way, you might say, oh, yeah, that is easier. You don't have to do it this way. So it's 2 times pi. What's the radius? 5. Now we have to multiply. So when you multiply, you can, if I take 2 times 3 times 4, what's your answer? 24. That is the same thing as saying it is 6 times 4, correct? Is it the same thing as saying 8 times 3? Yes. Is it the same thing as saying 12 times 2? Yes. The order in which you multiply does not make a difference. That's known as the, what property? Do you know? Do you remember? Commutative property of multiplication. It works for multiplication and addition. So as I look at this, I think it's easier, I do, to multiply 2 times 5 because what's that? 10. Your answer would be 10 pi. Units would be inches. You can leave your answer in that format, or it's easy to multiply by 10. If you have pi, which is 3.14, and you take it times 10, when you multiply by 10, what's that do to the decimal point? It just moves it over how many places? 1. Which way? To the right, and your answer would be 31.4 inches. That's a lot easier instead of taking 3.14 times 2, which is 6.28, and taking 6.28 times 5. For me, maybe not for you. What? You can hang the 0 in this situation. You could put a 0 behind the 4. It's called a terminal 0, and you do not need to write terminal zeros unless they ask you to specifically round it to a certain place value. All right, go ahead and calculate this figure for me, please. Answer 6 and 6, which is 12. Oh, what do we know about this segment? It's equal to the diameter. What's the diameter? 6. So I have another 6 on there, and then I'm going to have this curved segment there. And what's that curved segment? 3 pi. So if I group the straight segments together, the line segments together, you end up with 18 plus 3 pi. And your units are in feet. There's one answer. If you were to calculate it, 3 times 3.14 is 9.42. And you would have to add 18 to that, and you should receive an answer of 27.42 feet. Put your markers away. Tomorrow you'll come back and we will work through some problems.